A very warm welcome to my fellow GCSE students. I'd like to begin by saying Happy New Year, and let's get cracking on with some maths. So today we have something that we call the Cartesian Plane to learn about, and this name may not seem too familiar, so I will give you a formula which may make it easier to understand. So this formula goes by y equals mx plus c. Now, you may be thrown off by the amount of algebra that is in this, but I will tell you now, this is one of the easier topics, and it usually does stretch from about a grade 4 to a grade 6. Now, this is a list of the following things that you will hopefully be able to do by the end of this video, and I will give you some practice questions along the way. Y, M, and C. These may seem like absolutely nothing to you currently, but I will explain these in depth and you'll hopefully be able to get the grip of it and be able to apply this in your lessons and your tests and exams. Let's get going with the first subtopic. Now let's break this formula down. We have y equals mx plus c. In this following formula we have m. This represents the gradient, which is also known as the slope. Now this determines how steep the line is. So let's give you an example of the drawing here of the graph, a straight line graph. Now in this example of a following quadrant of a graph, we have something that we would refer to as y equals x. Now this is the case because, as you can see, when x is equal to 1, y will also be equal to 1. And usually we can calculate the gradient of a line using this. Now, this is a bit of a neater way to write it, but this will essentially just mean the difference of y divided by the difference of x. A nicer way to remember this perhaps may be y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. And that should give you the value of m. Now, m is just a coefficient of x, so in this example, as we had y equals x, coefficient would just be y equals 1x. But the 1 is unnecessary, so we just write it as y equals x. Now let's have a look at the point C. So C in this formula will actually represent the y-intercept, and the y-intercept is something which we will have a look at further on as well when we are actually trying to formulate the equation of a line. Now the y-intercept is the value of y at which the straight line crosses through the y-axis. So let's look at the formula we were looking at before. We had y equals x. Now this has no y-intercept, as you can tell, because c is just a constant. It will be, for example, let's just do y equals x plus 1. If the other line had no y-intercept, then it just means it will pass through y equals 0. However, this time, let's have a look at this. We've got y equals x plus 1. So we had this last time. Let's just get a rough sketch of it. Well, that was a bit of a bad sketch. So we had something like this last time. That is y equals x. Now if I do this, as you can see, it's shifted. So it was somewhere here before, but now it's shifted up one place. So that's how that would work. Now we've ascertained how we can actually try to understand and interpret y equals mx plus c. Now let's have a go at one of the questions that we can do. Let's just make up an imaginary pair of coordinates. Let's just make these up randomly. We've got 2, 3, and 5, 7. Okay, let's just say line L lies on these points. And what we are trying to do is we are trying to find the equation of the line of line L. So the first thing I usually do when I answer these questions is we will label these. So we'll have x1, y1. Because remember, if you can think of it according to this analogy, you should be fine. When we're looking at coordinates and graphs, along the corridors, up the stairs. So that's x1, y1. Then we've got x2 and y2. Now, let's try and recall the formula for the gradient of a line. That is the first step of it. So let's just write this here. Find the gradient. Now, I will give you at least 5 seconds to try and recall this. If you can do it, then well done. You are learning already. Recall the formula for the gradient of a line. Five seconds. Right. So it was, as you can remember, if you don't, then it's okay, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, this is why it's very crucial that we've actually labeled these, so it's much easier to just interpret. 7 minus 3 over 5 minus 2. 7 minus 3 is 4, 5 minus 2 is 3. And you know that we can't simplify this down any further because obviously there's no common factor, so yes. Now we can just write this so far. Y equals 4 over 3x plus c. X is just the variable that follows the coefficient, which is m. So if you wanted to, you could also just write this so that you remember it clearer. Now let's just write these coordinates again. 2, 3, and 5, 7. So we've done step 1. Now we need to do step 2. Calculate the c value. Now all you have to do here is just to get this. Pick one of the coordinates and you tell me one of them. Let's just assume you've picked this one, 5, 7. What you do is just label them x and y. And because it's y equals mx plus c, as you can see here, we'll just do 7 equals, then you've got the gradient, which is 4/3. What you want to do is now multiply the gradient by this value of x, which is 5. 5. Then you need to remember the constant plus c. That's crucial because we need to actually calculate the value of it. So then we can just finish the multiplication on this side. We'll have 20 over 3 plus c. Now we don't want 20 over 3 added to the value of c. We want c by itself. So let's isolate the value of c. We will subtract, we'll get rid of that by doing this. Now we need to get a common denominator. Now my method here is to usually just butterfly method. So we'll have 21 minus 20 over 3. And that will obviously just be 1/3. Now we've got the value of c. So our final formula will be y equals 4/3 x plus 1/3. That's the answer. Well done. Now that I've gone through these in detail, I have 2 exam questions here. Each of them have 2 parts. Now just to note, the square brackets will indicate how many marks each question is worth, and I'll give you a few minutes to try them. Skip ahead 10 seconds if you'd like to see the answers. And let's start going through the answers. So part 1a, find the gradient of line y. We've got 4, 6, and 9, 10, x1, y1, x2, y2. 10 minus 6 over 9 minus 4, 4 over 5. That means m is equal to 4 over 5. Just like that, 2 marks. Now let's get this out of the way. Now remember, when we were finding the y-intercept of a line, we just need to pick one of the coordinates, and this time I will pick 4, 6. 6 equals 4/5 multiplied by 4 plus the constant c. 6 is equal to 16 over 5, as we have expanded that bracket out, plus c. Now we need to isolate c by itself so we can get the value of that and not anything else. So we will have 6 minus 16 over 5 equals c. Now let's just work that out. And if you remember, 6 is just going to be like that. Now we're just going to do this. Cross multiply. And that means you just multiply across when you're doing the denominators. So we have 13 minus 16 over 5. 14 over 5. And pretty much that was it. So that is y equals 4/5 of x plus 14 over 5. 1, 2, 3, 3 marks, done. That is part 1 finished. Now for part 2a and part 2b. Thankfully we've actually got some space this time. How nice. So we've got part 2a. We've got the coordinates 6, 2, and 8 minus 4. And then we just have to find the gradient. So again, we're going to apply y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And that will just give us this. Let's just label them beforehand. I've just forgotten to do that. Minus 4 minus 2 over 8 minus 6. Now, we'll have a bit of a complication here, perhaps, if you guys don't know how to do this bit. But yeah, so we've got minus 4 minus 2. Negative 6 over 8 minus 6 is 2. Negative 6 divided by 2 is just going to be a negative 3, because, that's what we're going to do. Seeing as we've got positive 2, and 2 numbers will multiply to give us negative 6. We've already got one of them, which is a positive 2, and that will give us -3 to be the other number. So now we have m equals -3. Now I'll just let you into a bit of a secret here. Here's a little notation you can do, and that just means therefore. Now let's just put this as A for answer to part A. That is 2 marks. Let's just circle that. Now we're being asked to find the equation. Let's just pick the coordinates 8 and -4. So just write them down again. X, Y. And we have -4 is equal to -3 multiplied by 8 plus C. Now you remember that all we have to do is just expand the bracket on that side. -24 plus C. Now what we actually have to do is, again, isolate, but instead of subtracting, we can just add. Because if you know this, -24 plus 24 is 0, and that's what we can just do to the other side as well. So we will have C is equal to -4 plus 24, which is 20. Gradient, and we have the y-intercept, so we'll have y equals -3x plus 20. That is part B, therefore, and done. Done and dusted. Let's just go and give those marks out. 3 marks, done. This is quite an easy topic, and I'm hoping that you've understood it well, and let's go on to the next subtopic area. Now, in essence, I've actually covered a few areas here, and let's just take off the ones that I've just covered all in one go. So we've done this, we've also done this, and we've also done this, as I've explained it in detail. Now what we need to do is actually just understand how to apply the midpoint of a line. Okay, here's the next subtopic, the midpoint. Now the midpoint is generally what we refer to as the instance in which we have 2 coordinates, and the midpoint will be the point at which we have found the exact middle, hence the word midpoint. Now this is usually defined by x1 plus x2. It's just commutative, so you can write x2 plus x1 if you'd like, and then comma y1 plus y2, or again you can do y2 plus y1 as it is a commutative form of doing it. So we have this. Now let's apply this to a question. M lies on the points 6, 2 and 5. Let's go for 8. M is the midpoint also, is what we need to do. Find the midpoint. Right, so we know that it's going to be between them where it's exactly divided by 2. So we have 6, 2. Oh, Jesus, we're not looking for the absolute value, we're looking for coordinates, right? So we have x1, y1, x2, y2. Let's start dealing with the x side first. This one doesn't really matter too much, so we have 6 plus 5 over 2, brackets 8 plus 2, oh, put that down there, right? We have 11 over 2, and then we have 8 plus 2, which is 10, divided by 2 is just 5. And that, is your answer. That was it. Right, now I'll just give you 2 questions I've randomly made up, and these will just be to test your knowledge on this area. Oh, look at that, they're consecutive numbers. So that is your first question, and this is your second question. Find the midpoint of, let's just make some random numbers up, 7, 8, and 10, 14. Now you can have a go at those. I will just give the answers in a second. Let's go through question 1. 6, 7, 8, 9. x1, y1, x2, y2. Now we can just deal with the x values first. We have 6 plus 8 divided by 2, comma, as we are doing coordinates again, 7 plus 9 divided by 2. Now we can just simplify that down, and then we can just follow through by doing the addition, shortly followed by the division. 6 plus 8 is 14. 14 divided by 2 is 7, hence the x value will be 7. Now we can do it with the y value, so we will have 7 plus 9, 16. 16 divided by 2 is 8. So our answer to the first part will be 7, 8. Now our second pair of coordinates will be 7, 8, and 10, 14. Just label again, x2 will be here, y2 there. Now let's just deal with the x value. Really, it doesn't matter which one you deal with first, but sometimes it's just nice to go in chronological order. So we have 7 plus 10 divided by 2, comma, 8 plus 14 over 2. Should have just extended those brackets, it's fine. 7 plus 10, 17 divided by 2, so we'll have 17 over 2. Now note, you can put it into a decimal if you want to, but sometimes it's just better to leave it like that. 17, 2, 14 plus 8 is 22. 22 divided by 2 is 11. Just get the brackets. Don't forget the brackets whatever you do. There we go. That's our answer. Finished. Just like that, we've got onto another topic and we've completed. That's another one done. Now let's have a go at rearranging the form px plus qy equals r into y equals mx plus c. This one's not too bad. This is just a bit of algebraic manipulation, changing the subject of a formula. We have px plus qy equals r. Now, obviously, p in this case would represent whatever m is, and q is just a coefficient of y. R is just what would be the y-intercept. Let's do an example here. Let's say 3x plus 2y is equal to 7. Now let's try and recall the formula that we generally use for the equation of a straight line. We have y equals mx plus c. Now there will be an imaginary 1 in front of the y. So let's try and get px plus qy equals r into the form y equals mx plus c. Let's write it out again here. 3x plus 2y equals 7. Now the first step we want to make is isolating the y values. So we can do this by subtracting 3x on both sides. That gives us 2y equals 7 minus 3x. And then we can just go for this. We have 2y. So we just divide by 2, y equals 7 over 2 minus 3 over 2x, and that is your answer. Done. Now, what we can just think about here is some of you may not have actually done algebraic manipulation and changing the subject of a formula, so let's go through another one of these questions. Let's do this one for an instance. 2x plus 4y is equal to 8, and as some of you may have realised, I've just chosen to use even numbers as it will make the process much easier. Now recall the formula for a straight line, y equals mx plus c. Now we can easily just subtract 2x from each side, so we'll have 4y equals 8 minus 2x. Now we have 4y. As the formula states here, we need the value of 1y, and we have 4 times y, so we can just divide by 4 on both sides. Divide by 4, divide by 4. That will give us y equals 2 minus half of x. And if you want to actually keep it to this, then let's just write it like this instead. Y equals negative half of x plus 2. That is your answer. Just like that. This topic's generally quite easy if you do know how to rearrange. If not, sometimes it can be a challenge, but most of the time it will be easy. Now with px plus qy equals r in mind, we can literally kill more than 2 birds with one stone. We can actually try and kill 3 birds with one stone. So as you can remember, let's just have the following formula in front of us. Now we can think about trying to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So let's try and find the y-intercept first, so that this is just a bit of an easier step. Now remember, we would like it in the form y equals mx plus c, so we will just write it down here again, just for the space, plus 6y, and we need to get it into the form y equals mx plus c. First step will obviously be to subtract 3x, then we will have 6y equals 9 minus 3x. Now we can actually simplify this down as we have a common factor of 3. So we will have y equals 9 divided by 3 is 3, 6 divided by 3 is 2, minus 3 over 6, you should know your half fractions, that is just minus a half of x, let's get into y equals mx plus c instead of y equals c plus mx. Y equals negative 1 half of x plus 3 over 2. Answer, that should be 2 or 3 marks, finished. Very easy topic again. Let's go on to finding the x-intercept. So, x-intercept, this is where the line will cross the value of x somewhere. And we would generally just do it like this. Let's have a look at this. So let's say we have y equals negative x. At some stage it will cross, and this is what we are looking for in this instance. So let's have a go. When the x-intercept is found, it will also be the point where y is equal to 0. So y equals mx plus c will suddenly actually become 0 equals. Now we can use this again. So we have negative half of x plus 3 over 2. Now we need to isolate the x value instead of the y value this time, so we can just subtract 3 over 2 from both sides. Negative 3 over 2 is equal to negative 1 over 2x. Now we have a negative half of x. What we can just do here to get the value of at least a negative x is multiply 3 by 2 on both sides. Negative 3 is equal to negative x. Now when you have a negative value of a variable, what you can just do, if it's only negative 1x, you can just divide through by negative 1 on both sides. Now what number multiplies by negative 1 to get negative 3? 3. And because we've divided negative 1x divided by negative 1, it'll just be x. So x equals 3, and that is actually the x-intercept, the point at which y is equal to 0, and the point at which x crosses the x-axis. That's it. And just like that, we have done this, we have also done this, and now we can just go on to doing this, this, and this. And let's get going with determine whether a point lies on line given coordinates and its equation. Now with this part of it, all we're going to do is just do this. So we have an equation here, and all we're going to do is substitute the value of x as we have here into this following equation. And then we need to add 3 and see if it equals 6. If it does, then the point does lie on the line. So let's do this. Y equals 2 lots of 7 over 2 plus 3, and then work that out. So we have y equals 14 over 2 plus 3. 14 over 2, you should know, is just 7. Y equals 7 plus 3, y equals 10. And then what we can write here to make it look like you've actually got strong understanding is y does not equal 6. Therefore, the point does not lie the line. That's it really. All you need to do is some substitution and add whatever constant you have in the equation. If it's equal to this, you should get the value and it will lie on the line. If it doesn't, then you won't get the value, and then you can just determine that. So let's go for a few questions that you can just practice. So here are some questions for you to try. I've got 3 on this topic, and because I forgot to add some questions beforehand for the other topic of px plus qy equals r, finding the x-intercept and y-intercept, I've given you a set of questions there. Again, I'll give you 10 seconds to go through it, and then I will give you the answers and go through it in detail. Okay, let's go through the first question. Does the point 6, 6 lie on y equals x? Again, we're just going to substitute the value of x into the equation. So we will have y equals 6. Does y equal 6 here? Yes, it does. Therefore, the point lies on the line. And that's correct. Now let's look at the second question. Does 2, 3 lie on the line y equals x minus 1? 2, 3. Let's substitute the value of x again. Y equals 2, and we are subtracting 1. Y equals 1. y does not, however, equal 3, so then we can say does not lie on the line. And again, that is correct, and we have shown the relevant working out, so we'll get the marks for that too. This is usually worth 3 marks or 2 marks. Now, third question. 7, 5 lie on 2x plus 1. 7, 5. Substitute the value of x, and there we go. So x here, y equals 2 lots of 7 plus 1, and that will be y equals 2 times 7, 14 plus 1, 15. As we can very clearly see, y does not equal 5, therefore does not lie on the line. Now let's go on to this question. 3y plus 2x equals 7. Let's give this a tick as well. 3y plus 2x equals 7. 3y plus 2x equals 7. First, we are just trying to put it into the form y equals mx plus c. Let's do that really quickly. As you remember, we need to isolate the values of y, so let's just get rid of 2x on both sides. 3y equals 7 minus 2x. We will divide the root by 3 to get the value of 1y, as that is what we are looking for. Y equals, and because we want it as mx plus c rather than c plus mx, let's put it like this, negative 2/3 of x plus 7/3. That is part 1, and that is correct. Now for the second part, the question I have asked is the x-intercept. Now if we remember clearly, the x-intercept is a point at which y is equal to 0. So what we just need to do is 0 equals negative 2/3 of x plus 7 over 3. Isolate the x value, so we can just subtract 7 over 3 on both sides. Negative 7/3 is equal to negative 2/3 of x. We can cancel out the fraction by just multiplying through by 3 on both sides. Now we have cancelled out the fraction, we will just have negative 7 is equal to negative 2x. All we can do here really is divide through by negative 2 on both sides, and then we will have this. Now if you remember clearly from your previous learning, when you have a negative divided by a negative, you will just make it a positive. 7 over 2, and then because we've got negative 2 divided by negative 2, it will become a positive, and that is the positive value of x, which we were looking for. That is the x-intercept. Now we're looking for the y-intercept. We had this equation here. The y-intercept is just c, and remember the form y equals mx plus c. We're clearly not looking for that, we're looking for c, and that is c, so y-intercept, and I should really write c, and that is correct. That's a rubbish tick, and this is also correct. That's done. Just like that, we've done another topic, just like that. Now we just need to do this, plot a straight line using a table of values, and understand how to calculate the equation of a perpendicular line. Now let's take a look at perpendicular lines. Now, if your maths knowledge does stretch that far, you will know that perpendicular means the point at which two lines cross to form a right angle. A right angle is 90 degrees, if you didn't know. So, a perpendicular line will have the negative reciprocal as a gradient of whatever you've got. So let's just say a line had this as a gradient. Let's just call this line L. If you want to find the perpendicular, then all we have to do is this, the negative reciprocal. And the negative reciprocal is essentially what we just do this, divided by negative 1. So negative 1 divided by, and then we have this 2. Put it as fractions, and you should remember to keep, flip, change. So we will have negative 1 multiplied by a half, and you'll have a negative half as the gradient, and then because we have no set values to go through, it will just be negative half of x plus whatever you want, 9, 10, let's just do this, even. But that's what you do if you haven't got given coordinates that it passes through. So let's just get rid of this. And let's try a question here. We'll use the same equation, and then we will add some coordinates. Y equals 2x plus 1. Okay, passing through. Let's do 4 and 5. Find the perpendicular equation. Right. The first thing we'll always do, this is just like working out y equals mx plus c by itself. So we just need to do this. Work out the gradient. You will literally just know because we've used the same one. Equals just 1. Now all we're going to do is just substitute the values. But we're just going to use the same thing as y equals mx plus c. So we've got 5 equals negative half multiplied by 4 plus c. 5 equals, expand the bracket, negative 4 over 2 plus c. 5 equals negative 4 divided by a positive 2 is negative 2 plus c. We're going to add a 2 to isolate the c. We've got 7 is equal to c. And then we should just have this. Y equals negative half of x plus 7 as the perpendicular equation of the line that we were looking for. Now, here are some questions for you to go through. I've got these, and let's give you a chance to go through these. Unfortunately, I won't be giving you the answers this time. I'd like you to just trust your instinct, and let's have you try these out now. We have now done this part, and now we just need to do this final part here. Now, this is perhaps the easiest part of it all because all you are doing is some simple addition, subtraction, or generally just multiplication. This is very nice and easy. I will just reiterate the fact that this is perhaps the easiest part, and now let's go through it. So let's just say we've got the equation y equals 3x plus 1. Now the way we set this up is we just do this, and you need to just do this as well. Label the top part x, label the bottom part y. Then just decide some values really. If you've been given set values, then it's okay, but let's just do this. 0, 1, 2, 3. All this takes is some simple substitution, so let's go and do that. Y equals 3x plus 1. Substitute the values of x here into this formula. So we have y equals 3x plus 1. Let's just do the working out as well. Y equals 3 lots of 0 plus 1. Now, anything multiplied by 0 is just 0, and we're adding 1 to that, so we have y equals 1. This also happens to be the y-intercept, because the y-intercept is where x is equal to 0. Let's go on to the next one. Y equals 3 lots of 1 now, so we're doing this, and we're adding 1. 3 multiplied by 1 is 3, and we're adding 1, so that gives us 4. Because this is linear, it goes in one direction, and you'll slowly be able to spot a pattern here, so I'll tell you if you don't realise, but hopefully you can. Let's go on to the third value that we've been assigned, which is x equals 2. Y equals 3 lots of 2 plus 1. 3 multiplied by 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. I'll just mention this now. When you have a linear equation, which is just a non-square equation, you will have a common difference, and in this case it's 3 plus 3 plus 3. So easily you can just guess that 7 plus 3 will give you the value of x plus 3 for y, and that will just be 7 plus 3, which is 10. And that's it, finished. I won't be giving you any questions for this because I'm sure that you can do this easily.